knows who he is. Everyone. The man has been in films for over 50 years. Whether it was Connery, Lazenby, Moore, Dalton, Brosnan, or Craig, everyone at one point or another has their 007. Go Team Craig. And just like every major Hollywood film that is integrated into pop culture, it was based off of a book. Who do you think Ian Fleming was? Inspired much by his career at the Naval Intelligence Division, as well as to help distract his mind from his upcoming wedding, he wrote the first entry in 2 months that would lead to the most beloved spy that women want and men wanted to be. Though, from what Skyfall suggests is Bond bats for both teams.
Well, first time for everything. Yes.
What makes you think this is my first time?
Oh, Mr. Bond.
You know fanfiction writers had a field day when they heard that. God, the things we would do. Oh, like you wouldn't! The first Bond book was a major success. Many citing it because Britain at the time needed a little power fantasy with their once great empire falling after World War II, and Bond helped fulfill that promise for the Cold War, showing that it's not the size of your empire that matters, it's how you use it. Of course, from what I've been hearing from Scotland, you've been using it poorly. All of which would lead to a long series of books that are still getting published, the movie series of course, and a permanent place in pop culture. Also, quick note, it turns out Ian Fleming also wrote Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Yes, the one you were thinking of.
Oh, you pretty chitty bang bang, chitty chitty bang bang, we love you. And in chitty chitty bang bang, chitty chitty bang bang, what we'll do.
Now I can't stop thinking about that song being sung by Sean Connery. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, my name is David Popovich, aka the Bookworm, and welcome to Bookworm Reviews. Sit back and relax as we dive into the first James Bond adventure, Casino Royale, by Ian Fleming. Also, if you're wondering why I'm not in my standard suits, it has been hot out here this last week, like hot as Jamaica, and I am not sweating in that thing. Move along. Okay, I have to be honest. The plot for Casino Royale has always confused me. I get that Bond needs to win in a high-stakes poker game from some French guy, but for the life of me, I can never remember the reasoning behind it. It happens all the time. I see the reason, I read the reason, I look it up on Wikipedia, but then I'll completely forget it. Part of it is it's kind of convoluted in its execution. The general idea is that Lee Chiffre, I apologize if I mispronounce, is a major player for the organization SMERSH, who are the Soviet CIA in France. But Lee Chiffre fell into financial problems from a bad investment with brothels using SMERSH's money. And you don't want to be on SMERSH's bad side. So he plans to get the money back through the Casino Royale in France. In brief, Lee Chiffre plans, we believe, to follow the example of most other desperate till robbers and make good the deficit in his accounts by gambling. But the world organizations know this is a great opportunity to ruin the communist operations in France. Can you tell this was made in the 50s? The main agent they send to make sure to bankrupt Lee Chiffre is Agent 007 James Bond, along with several other agents from across the world to stop Lee Chiffre, for if they fail, they may never get another chance. So the fate of the world depends on whether or not Bond wins at a card game. James Bond, original Yu-Gi-Oh! Sure, all of that sounds simple, But oh my god, did it confuse the hell out of me when I read it. They take a whole chapter dedicated to whom Alicia Free is, but the wording and the execution of it was just... If they didn't recap everything at the end, I would have been completely lost. But you gotta admit, it's all kind of silly. In order to save the world, you need to win a card game. Maybe it's because I grew up on a lot of shows that use that concept to death, but I found it completely hilarious seeing how Bond took playing cards so seriously. Bond had always been a gambler. He loved the dry ruffle of the cards and the constant, unempathetic drama of the quiet figures around the green tables. He liked being an actor and a spectator, and from his chair to take part in other men's drama and decisions, until it came to his own turn to say that vital yes or no, generally on a 50-50 chance. But that is James Bond. The books are by definition silly. Half the time you don't care about whether or not James Bond will make it. It's Bond. Of course he's going to survive. He's a blank slate, an avatar to take us to sides of the world that we can only dream about, to see exotic locations, crazy gadgets, and the sexy women. Ugh. Fleming himself even stated, I wanted him to be a blunt instrument. When I was casting around names for my protagonists, I thought, by God, James Bond is the dullest name I ever heard. And you can see that. Bond doesn't have that much of a character outside of, I'm a badass. That's how we, as a culture, have built him up as. But that doesn't mean Ian Fleming didn't provide some interesting traits to the character. It's not difficult to get a 00 number if you're prepared to kill people, he said. That's all the media has. It's nothing to be particularly proud of. Surprisingly, the film adaptation is strangely faithful to the book. The Bond here is still a newbie. He's only recently got his 00 license, and he's using it to go about doing his black and white missions of this good and this bad. Yet he's still human, with all the faults that come with it. In particular, this scene here when he witnesses two men getting blown up. Between them, there was still a smoking crater. Of the two men in straw hats, there remained absolutely nothing, but there were red traces on the road, and on the pavements, and against the trunks of the trees, and there were glittering shreds high up in the branches. Bond felt himself starting to vomit. Who in their right mind now would think James Bond could ever vomit? Casino Royale in general is the origin story of James Bond. We don't jump right in seeing him as a badass. In fact, the book starts him off as a badass, but as we learn more about him, we see just how flawed he is, and how he isn't ready to face the real horrors the world can offer, which leads to the famous ball torture scene. Yes, that is in the book, where Alicia Free confronts Bond on just how out of water he is. My dear boy, Alicia Free spoke like a father. The game of Red Indians is over. Quite over. You have stumbled, by mischance, into a game for grown-ups, and you have already found it a painful experience. You are not equipped, my dear boy, to play games with adults, and it was very foolish of your nanny in London to have sent you out here with your spade and bucket. Very foolish indeed, and most unfortunate for you. In general, the book is decent, a product of the times. The biggest problem in the book is that the main conflict ends by the second act, leaving you with a very dry third. It makes it up with a big character-changing twist, but boy does nothing of interest happen in the third act. It's like an epilogue that just won't end. There are still a lot of things that will make you interested in continue reading the series, mainly being who the hell is Smersh, as well as what else will Bond encounter. But the book itself can be very dry in a lot of areas, though it does shake things up enough to keep things from stirring together. But oh boy does this suffer a great deal of the 50s. What the hell do they want to send me a woman for? He said bitterly. Do they think this is a bloody picnic? Oh God, how it suffers from the 50s. Women were for recreation. On the job, they got in the way and fogged things up with sex and hurt feelings and all the emotional baggage they carried around. One had to look out for them and take care of them. You know, it's times like these that make me glad we have moved on from such misogynist ideas that, in the end, it's an interesting read to see where this legendary character got his start. I'm not sure if today's generation will fully enjoy it like when he first appeared in the 50s, but still, it's like looking through a window of a different time with a very different taste. The Lord knows some of it will leave you sour. What about you, Internet? What's your opinion about Casino Royale? Viewer Suggestion Month chugs along as we learn how to be pirates. Yarr! Till next time, have a nice day.
Fall from